We're live. All right. I'd like to call to order the March 27th, 2025 Columbia Borough Council meeting. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilperson Zink.
Here.
Councilperson Kaufman.
Here.
Councilperson Stahl.
Here.
Councilperson Fisher.
Here.
Councilperson Beasley.
Here.
Councilperson Murphy.
Here.
Councilperson Brevard.
Here.
Mayor Lutz.
Here.
All right. Did anyone wish to offer an invocation? If you'd like, please rise for a moment of silence. Councilperson Brevard, would you like to lead us in pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Announcement of executive sessions, there were none. Are there any additions, deletions, or reorganization of the agenda needed? I'm not aware of anything. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as published?
So moved. Second.
A motion by Councilperson Kaufman, second by Councilperson Stahl, to approve the agenda as published. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Citizen comment, non-agenda items only. First sign up I have is Sharon Littner.
Good evening. I'm assuming this is on.
Yep.
Okay.
Sharon, you might have to speak into the mic.
Is that better?
That is
Okay. Thank you. All right. During last week's joint meeting, Frank Doutrick asked a question about the April 1st deadline for the demolition of the Franklin Street property. And the council president answered that was never the date the building was to come down. There was a little confusion about, I believe you said the drone deadline. But in fact, in November, at the November 12th meeting, you said, time is of the essence, the building must be moved or demolished by April 1st of 2025. And again, in January, when the mayor stated that he didn't think there was a push to take the building down, you responded again by saying April 1st. And it may seem like a small thing, but I want to know why you told Frank that it was never the date, if it was said twice that it was the date.
That was the date we needed to know if we were moving it or we were bringing it down, because that was the, like, if someone was going to move it, it had to be off the property by April 1st.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. And I would like to respond to statements that were made in my absence about me directly last week. It was during the joint meeting on the 20th. Councilman Burgard referred to my comments as poor, lazy campaign talking points, which I believe is false. I am not running a campaign, nor am I supporting anyone who is, and I no longer belong to any political committee in Columbia Borough. Secondly, he went on to say that my statements were unfounded accusations regarding live streaming, but in fact, they were not unfounded. Regarding the live stream, at one point during a meeting, Councilwoman Fisher had stated, if we don't have to do it, why are we doing it? And the borough manager also let me know they were working on fixing the problem, but he also added they're not required to provide the service. And Frank Doutrick received a similar response from a borough official. So when three people who have some authority over live streaming are telling us something similar, it raises red flags. I don't consider these remarks, two of which are documented, to be unfounded. Thirdly, referring to the meeting discussion during the work session on March 4th, Councilman Burgard again said that wasn't the conversation. Yet that was exactly what was printed on the agenda for the March 4th session, that we were to be discussing cost cutting. Going on, it was said, Councilman Burgard suggested that I come and bring my ideas. And actually, I made several suggestions, a half a dozen that I counted as documented in the borough's own minutes since last November, during budget meeting talks. In fact, I'm willing to bet that I've made more suggestions on cost cutting than any other resident in the borough. Some of these have been, I thought, things that were possible. They weren't wild ideas. They were possible and should be discussed. So that's the end of that. I'm not saying any more about that. Can anyone tell me what happened to the bus stop shelter? It's been removed, and I just wondered why, if anyone knows.
Sure. South Central Transit Authority removed it.
Okay, they just decided to take it away.
There was a contract, a 15-year contract
Okay,
on that, and that has expired. It's been 19 years. And was an issue with the cleaning and the sanitary conditions of it. And we talked to them about the conditions. And I
Okay.
guess their decision was take it down rather than try to mitigate the conditions.
okay. Were they the ones responsible to keep it clean?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, today wasn't so bad weather-wise, but I hate to see people waiting on a bus in pouring down rain without even a little bit of shelter. So I just was concerned about that. And last thing, I noted a deeply troubling comment on Facebook this afternoon. A post about the newly elected James Malone drew a racist comment that alone is bad enough. But I wanted to draw your attention that the Columbia Republic Committee gave that remark a like. And I know a couple people seated at the table belong to that committee. And I just found that a bit troubling and wondered if you condone such remarks. via that
Certainly
link.
not.
Sir, a council as a body does not condone that.
Well, I'm just saying some council members are a member of that and gave it a like.
Right,
The
but what they
committee.
do in their outside of their official capacity as counselors, it's not something I can answer.
Well, I
for
just
here
wanted to
today.
make a comment on it because I thought it was rather offensive. Thank
Let
you.
me say publicly to you, Sharon, Mr. Malone is a friend of mine.
Okay. But you're a member of the committee as well. So maybe
But I
the,
wouldn't dare do something like that.
okay, well, maybe the admin did it. I don't know, but somebody posted it. Thank you.
Right, the next sign up we have is Frank Doutrick.
Good evening, you all. I'd like to address Eric over here. Eric, apparently they were out at McGinness's and surveyed
You mean Derek?
McGinness's property.
Derek.
That's Derek.
Eric, yeah.
Oh, I thought you said Eric.
I might have said that. It both sound, it sounds.
You there in the blue jacket.
It sounds, yeah. Yeah, the guy that's ahead of all the surveying and everything out there. But anyway, out where I have my lot, we talked about would maybe get them 4 corners. They did the southeast corner of the end of the runway on 12th Street, and they put on their corner marker. So I can measure from there and pretty well, I really don't need them other markers. So I can get my measurements what I need. So I just wanted to let you know
Okay,
that.
great.
get
Thanks,
to
Frank.
talk to. The other thing is, I live streamed that meeting, the joint meeting from last week, and absolutely terrible. The audio is just, I don't know what you people got to do, but if you're paying somebody to do this, which my understanding is the assistant borough manager brought out that they had a technician here. Why did we pay this guy? Why don't we make him come to the meetings and hear this, or make him sit through this to see how these things are going? Why we keep spending money on this? Don't nobody care? I mean, it ain't getting any better. I don't know. How is it tonight? Does anybody know? Anybody live stream it?
Is there a I mean, I'm just asking, because I know there's been a couple times where people said that the sound, you couldn't hear this and that. And I went back and watched the tape replay later on, and the sound, I mean, it was a little soft, but you could hear it. So I
Did
don't know if
you,
there's something going on with the live versus,
did you play the one from last week?
no. Like,
No, it was a joint meet. It's scratchy. I mean, you had to
Hey, Frank,
really listen.
Mrs. Kaufman back there said it's fine. She just listened to it.
Okay, there we go. Maybe we got it fixed for a week or two. But anyway, I'd like to ask about the rentals that the people have, that we have to have license for and everything. What's the protocol on your relations renting from you, renting these buildings?
That's not, you can't, it's still a rental.
It is still a rental, yeah, and I would have to look specifically at the borough's ordinance, but in almost every case, in every rental ordinance I've ever seen, it doesn't matter if someone is living there who is not the owner of the property, then it's a rental property.
My next question is, are we enforcing this?
Yes.
If we know about it, yes.
Well, what do you do to find out about it? I mean,
if people are reporting it or it's discovered during an inspection or something like that, at renewal time,
there is many out there, and my understanding is it's $500 if you get caught.
yes.
And somebody is lacking somewhere. I ain't going to say I don't know who, but I know there's many out there. When I see 5, 6, 7 cars at one lot, and I know they're all different, and I see different people that's not related, and they're surely not living there for nothing. They're rentals, and we're missing out somewhere. So anyway, I just wish that would be taken care of. My last thing here is, thank you, Sharon, for bringing out about last week's meeting there. Sharon left the meeting early. I left it right close to the end, but I thought it was in very bad taste that a councilman cowardly brought up, some of them were lies that he brought out that shouldn't have been. It was just cowardly the way it was done. I always, if I have to call somebody out, I like to have them here, and I like to give them a chance to rebuttal. So they have a chance, and I have a chance to straighten that out. But anyway, my grandmother was a wiser. She raised all of us down on 2nd Street. She had some very good sayings, and she taught us very good, I thought. And one of her sayings was, when she would know something like this happened, and she would tell them, hey, don't let your mouth overload your ass. And this is what happened there. So thank you.
All right. Is there anyone that did not get a chance to sign up that would like to speak? Yes. Please come to the microphone and state your name for the record.
Hi there. My name is Ethan Byers. I don't think I've had the pleasure of meeting most of you before. I wanted to ask regarding the letter of no trespass that was sent to the previous market manager, Chris Vera. It was posted this morning on a blog. And I specifically wanted to ask about if the reason for termination was poor performance, why is the appropriate response afterwards to have him not able to come onto any borough property?
This is a legal matter, correct, Evan? And we cannot discuss that.
So there's just no comment about anything about why, or
It's a legal
We're not going
matter.
to talk
We're
about
not at
personnel
liberty to
matters,
discuss
no.
it.
will
No comment.
will there ever be a comment about this? Because I've seen quite a few people discussing it, and I think that there's, a lot of public interest as to understanding the situation, especially if the borough council believes that there's a reason that he shouldn't be allowed on borough property. Should business owners be concerned at all about him being on their property, for instance? I think that there's a valuable bit of information there that would be worth at least some clarification.
Unfortunately, we can't comment on personnel matters like that. Sorry.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else that did not get a chance to sign up that wanted to speak? All right, minutes for approval. Could I have a motion to approve the Borough Council meeting minutes for March 11th, 2025?
So moved.
A motion by Councilperson Kaufman, second by Councilperson Stahl, to approve the Borough Council meeting minutes for March 11th, 2025. Yes.
Did you notice that under the comments, I believe it's 6F, they do not have a last name for Allison?
Yes, I noticed that.
Did you not hear her last name, or do you not, the last name for Allison on the minutes, did you not hear it?
She did say it. I mean, she said her last name, but
I can call and give that to them if they want to add that to the minutes.
we can amend the minutes to show, what number was that? 6F, Allison Leibgott. You're okay with that amendment?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Spell that last name. And her first name.
It's Liebgott.
I have a motion by Councilperson Kaufman, second by Councilperson Stahl, to approve the Borough Council meeting minutes for March 11th, 2025, with the correction to 6F, adding Allison Leibgott, adding the last name. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, presentation and acceptance of reports, community development.
Yes, I'd like to acknowledge the February 2025 zoning and planning reports.
All right, finance, I would like to acknowledge receipt of the finance reports for February 2025. Are there any questions, comments? Nothing? All right, safety and marketing, Councilperson Bernard.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge receipt of the public safety reports, Columbia Borough Police Department for February 2025, Columbia Borough Fire Department for January and February 2025, Columbia EMOC report for February 2025, EMS report for February 2025, and acknowledge receipt of the codes compliance report and condemnation report for February 2025. I wanted to, on the police report, monthly report, I was just really excited to see the number of double parking citations that were issued. That's one of my biggest pet peeves in this borough. I understand parking is a problem at times in some places, and hey, it makes sense to unload groceries or children or do what you have to do.
Whose phone is on? Could you please turn that off?
I'm sorry. I just got a call from my sister-in-law. She said she's trying to watch it and it's not coming online. It's not online.
It is live. We can see it.
They can see it here.
All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So, oftentimes I see folks double parked and there's two empty spaces, sometimes right next to where they're parked in the middle of the road. It's a complete public safety issue, and I'm really glad to see that our officers, our patrolmen and women are taking care of that. In fact, I talk to them about it every time I rode with them. So that's good. And hey, on the fire report, we got 2 months worth of fire reports in here. I just want to call to your attention the number of hours that these volunteers put in, not just on calls, but in training. January alone, 1,144 hours of volunteer time, 1,104 hours in February. These folks have jobs, they have families, they have lives outside the fire department, and they do this for free. I just want to give those folks, I think there's about 50 folks on our on our department right now, volunteers. Give them all a shout out and thank them for the wonderful job they do and the commitment and the time, energy, and effort they sacrifice to keep us safe.
All right.
Anything else, Councilperson?
That's everything.
All right. And then personnel, Councilperson Fisher.
I'd like to acknowledge the resignation of Justin Meisel from the Public Works Department.
All right. Mayor Lutz, Chief Brommer.
Okay, Chief has something to go over, but before that, let me say a few things. The weather's changing. People are starting to mow. People need to be reminded not to blow grass out in the street. It does present a safety factor, especially if it's wet and gets slippery, could cause an accident. The other important part of that is, as that washes down the storm sewers and ends up in the river, the chemicals that are on a lot of the lawns constitutes pollution into the Susquehanna, consequently into the bay. And part of our stormwater mandate on our MS4 permitting and all, we could be cited for that. So people need to be mindful of that, and I'm sure the borough code enforcement people will be out there keeping an eye on it. The other thing is as the weather changes, starting to see some signs popping up. Took one down off of this red light post the other day. Signs are not permitted on borough property, on borough equipment. Stop sign posts, whatever have you, street side posts, nor are they permitted on telephone poles. And if you want to put a sign up, it has to be in a yard. And if you're putting it in someone else's yard, you need permission to do that. I would advise people to take a look at that ordinance and act accordingly. I know last year several people were cited for it, and the guys were out there working pretty diligently. It really is not attractive to the community when you see things tacked all over the place. Truth of the matter is, if you see those signs, drive by them, you can't read them. So it's really worthless what you do. Now, I do see some signs in people's yards, and that's great. You know, just like a campaign sign on wire, that's great, you know, and that's permitted as long as they have permission from the homeowner, or they are the homeowner. I just want to, for council, real briefly, we've been talking back and forth about the transfer of property down at the former wastewater treatment plant with JD Mechanical. And we hit a stumbling point with the crossing. I contacted our Congressman Smucker's office. We've been talking back and forth for the past week or so. I've also been in contact with some folks from Norfolk Southern, and I know that the Congressman has been in contact with them, because the last correspondence I got from them was, please remind Congressman Smucker's office that you spoke to me. It appears as though there is a resolution to this, but thanks to Jake, I got a bunch of thread of emails to see where the problem was, and I will forward them on to the Congressman's office and again to my contact with Norfolk Southern. The last thing I heard from Norfolk Southern was, this seems to be easily remedied, and we're going to put a rush on it. So whether they stand up to what they said, I don't know, but I'm staying on this. I'm trying to solve this problem for us, so that we can transfer that property and take that funding and do some of the things we want to do. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chief.
I have a proposal for your feedback and future consideration. If you would, please take one and pass it on. The idea for this proposal actually came from our borough manager, Steve Kaufhold, and it's addressing one of the concerns that were issued when we discussed eliminating the coin-fed parking meters. So what I would ask you to consider is a senior parking permit. I'm asking the borough to create a permit for those who are 70 years of age or older and are residents of the borough. The process here is outlined. The individual would file an application with the borough. The borough would ensure that pertinent information is contained and verified, the residential status. And then once granted, we would issue a parking permit. There's a copy on page 3 of what the permit may look like. And we would ask the residents to actually place that permit sticker in the lower passenger side corner of the windshield for our parking enforcement to be able to verify. What this would afford our seniors is 1 hour of free parking, which is similar to the handicap parking, which we permit. We provide them 1 hour currently on metered locations or anywhere in the lots. You'll see page 2 is an actual application. And of course, you know, both are drafts. So if you have any feedback, we would welcome it.
I like it.
I like it as well, Steve.
Although I would suggest the age go to 65.
That's for y'all to discuss and decide. The big thing about this is there was quite a bit of concern going with Park Mobile and some of our senior citizens being able to have that access to get onto Park Mobile. And knowing that our meters are at the end of their life, we can't get parts for them anymore. We knew we had to do something, but we also were sensitive to our senior citizens who may be the group that has the most difficulty. And also looking at a lot of our seniors come downtown to the market, to some of the restaurants or whatever have you. And, you know, in an hour's time, they may be able to do what they need to do and move. Now, they can also, if they run over that hour or run near that hour, they can go and slug the meter or use Park Mobile, whichever is in operation at that time. So trying to give our seniors a break. And I think it's great that we give our seniors a break, but also that we do what we can do to give back to the community.
How would you enforce the 1 hour?
We currently do that now as far as the handicap parking. Our parking enforcement officers will locate a vehicle, they'll mark the time that they're parked there, maybe chalk around the tire, and then follow up with that. And there is some parking enforcement software that we know in the future may be able to assist us even greater with that more efficiently.
Thank you.
Can you change the age to 65?
Sure. I can do whatever you wish.
Consider a senior?
Sure will.
What are we looking at? Possibly bringing this forward as a resolution on the 8th, I think, of April?
It would have to be an ordinance to be able to be enforced. So yeah, you'd want to. It needs to go
Ordinance, and we'll have to bring it forward as an ordinance
to get authorization to
advertise, and
Yeah.
then, all right.
Mhm.
So, yep, that can go on whenever that gets written up.
But so you can't vote on it until you get the ordinance?
Correct. You would have to advertise the ordinance. Right. We have to be authorized to advertise it, and then council would vote on that ordinance.
So may I ask council president if we can put a motion together to advertise in the meantime? Because we kind of like to, before summer gets here, start this.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think if we can get it drafted up, your next voting meeting is the 8th. I can certainly get an ordinance drafted up for you guys to get authorization to advertise. And this is just it's not a zoning ordinance amendment, so it only has to be advertised 7 days before adoption. So if you authorize advertisement on the 8th, then it could be ready for adoption on April 22nd. Is that would that be the right date? Yeah.
That'd be wonderful.
That's
Yeah,
probably good. That
we
gives us time to get the stickers.
Yeah.
I suggest putting it on the work agenda, work session agenda next
Can't
week.
vote that.
No, but just to hammer out any details, the 65, whatever.
I really like this. Thank you, Jack. and
Yeah, I do
Steve.
too. Thanks.
It's a good idea.
Well, I think Jack and his administration did the work on that today, but the idea came from your borough manager.
I think the plan is to use the front window to distribute stickers. So, yeah, I'm really happy with it. I like
And
it.
just to take that a step further too, I had a discussion with Paula today. We should be able to use the codes database to track those who are permitted.
Okay.
So, and Paula said she'd be happy to make some changes in the system to accommodate that information.
I also want to add, I think there's discussion that it's one vehicle per household. Per address. So it's not like we'll be giving out 20 to one person.
So with Paula's code software being able to track it, we will be able to get an annual report on how many people are taking advantage of this, correct?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, right.
Chief, this is just for metered spaces.
This is downtown parking, so it would also be the lots. So not just metered spaces.
No meters in the
Right.
lot.
If you recall, we're starting to eliminate the parking meters in certain locations. So those locations that require paid parking, which would be Park Mobile or metered locations.
And what did you say after the first hour?
1 hour free. After the first hour, you would need to pay.
You gotta pay.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to see if it had anything to do with their personal residence at home. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, and I keep forgetting this, I brought it up last year at a couple meetings, the damage that was done up in Ridge Avenue by certain individuals. I was always ahead of my time because it wasn't in court or it didn't get figured out yet. So what was the bottom line? What come out of that with those kids that did that damage?
There were a number of juveniles that were arrested and also adults for trespassing on the property. Our officers had apprehended, I believe there were 6 to 8 adults, those that were over the age of 18 that were on the property as well. So arrests were made. I don't know the disposition of each case though, but the charges were filed.
Yeah, I knew all that, but I wanted to know if the borough ended up using their insurance to pay for this, or these kids had to make restitution, or, so you don't know none of that.
I don't have that information with me now.
Yeah, okay. And when the mayor first started talking, Heather, I thought he had your microphone. What all of a sudden made that come through so good?
I think one of the problems, Frank, I believe people aren't getting the microphone directly in front of them. And so many times people will talk, and for example, I may be talking right now and I may turn my head and it not pick up. So I think we got to be very cautious that we're always talking into the mic and not turning our head.
Yeah,
I tend to talk loud because I will turn my head, but I hope it picks it up.
That's the first your voice ever come out like that. Then I just listened to Barb. I couldn't hear Barb, but yet your voice, your microphone, I know they have settings underneath, and I've looked at it already. I thought, well, somebody must have found the settings or whatever. Heather's is the best microphone. Now yours
think
I
that-
truly thought you had her microphone.
I just project, my voice just projects.
Yes, that
Let's
too.
just say it. I
But
don't
you-
even need the microphone, my voice just projects.
But again, what he said, you're talking straight too. You're looking out at the audience and you're talking straight, but some you just can't hear it. But that I had to bring out because that was different. Thank you.
All right, anything else, chief?
I could hear it.
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now, I would consider this the main event. I'm going to welcome John B. Miller from the Lancaster EDC to give us an update on the McGinness Innovation Park. And John, I'm sorry, I realized the presentation that I put in here still has that page 2 on it.
Still has page 2.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not going to go to Prince Street Cafe for lunch.
Oh, that's an old presentation, not the current one. I have the current one on the thumb drive if that's easy to pull up.
I thought that I put the current one in the packet.
It's page 81.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, can we put the current, I realized because I still have 39.6 acres. Do you have your thumb
I
drive?
do have a thumb drive. Who can-
Steve.
Steve, can you? I don't know how, I'm sorry, I don't know how I screwed that up. I thought I downloaded the right one. No, it's not, but.
While you're getting that up, let me say, I'm glad to see the CEO of Lancaster Economic Development Company, Ezra, is with us also.
Yep, Ezra's here as well. So, welcome. Yeah. The PowerPoint won't open?
I think if
You need
PowerPoint's
to
not
sign in.
downloaded in your computer, it's not going to open
I
it.
think you need to sign in to your.
I have the same problem with mine. I
Sign in
can't
to
do
your
Word or
Microsoft account.
PowerPoint.
Sign in to your Microsoft 360.
Can you just right click and open with something else? Open with. Choose another app. Open with Adobe. You don't have to convert it. You just open it with Adobe. Yeah, I will. See?
Thank you, Tech.
Mhm.
Oh, there we go.
I had it. You're so close.
Nope, we were close. Yeah, choose. Try WordPad. Or even Word.
If PowerPoint's not downloaded, Word's not.
I know Word's a pain, but
Any option. We're so close.
nope, it's not gonna do it. Nope, you don't have anything with Office. All right, well, we'll
just use what.
and John, you can tell us which.
We'll go with what's up there. Yeah, so you can skip down to the first one with one more. There you go. We'll start with that. So for starters, I'm John B. Miller. I'm Vice President of Business Retention and Expansion for EDC Lancaster County, which is the nonprofit community and economic development organization that covers, as the name implies, Lancaster County. And with me is Ezra Rothman, our president. So the presentation here is about the McGinness Airport and Innovation Park. We've been engaged in conversations about this park back to pre-Rebecca Denlinger being the borough manager. So I'm pretty sure we go back at least 4 borough managers in terms of engagement here, and have been part of just uncountable conversations around how to redevelop this parcel for the benefit of the borough. And as I think most of you know, it's a pretty challenging parcel that has a lot of issues and items that need to be addressed in order to be developed or redeveloped. And really the most important thing that has happened over the years during that time is the borough bought the site and got site control. Because of the many challenges, the existing owners weren't really interested in doing redevelopment there. They wanted to sell it. And B, a private developer is really going to be challenged to look at a parcel like this and addressing all the things that we'll talk about and actually make any money and make it a viable redevelopment for them. So we broke this update presentation into 2 meetings. Derek and Evan at the last meeting or previous meeting, I think, gave you an update on a lot of what we've been doing since the borough purchased the property. So that included taking it through the design and permitting process, addressing multiple boundary, abandoned parcel layout and due diligence items, doing native species studies, historical reviews, pretty much everything you have to do in order to do a development in the Commonwealth, and have gotten the parcel to the point that it can be reverse subdivided back into one large parcel, have a land development plan approved, and get an NPDES permit from the Commonwealth in order to actually start doing work. So from that perspective, while that has taken much longer and was much more complicated than I think anyone anticipated when we started this, the borough has done some really heavy lifting in terms of moving this forward and actually adding value to the site in the kind of the continuation of the development process. The map that you have up there is the outline of what will be or is currently the reverse subdivided parcel that will be the business park. And really, let me just skip to the next slide because that will be probably a little more beneficial. So through the years that we've been working on this, there have been a variety of different proposed sort of development layouts, most of which were drawn by ELA Group that has been part of the development team, looking at a bunch of different things and what would also be the most economical or efficient use of money in terms of how to redevelop it. So what you're looking at here is sort of the draft redevelopment plan as it currently looks if it were to be built out today. And that includes an L-shaped road being put in that connects is the 11th and Franklin Streets and basically creates 2 larger parcels. The original development, as everybody remembers, was around potentially building a drone innovation park here. So that would have required a runway. So you still see a proposed runway drawn into the current site plan. But at this point, it's looking less and less likely like the drone piece is going to happen. So it would be more of a regular business park, and the runway becomes just part of, actually makes the sites more developable because it makes them larger. And with a plan like this, you have 2 large parcels. The northern piece could be 1 user, or it could be 3 users, depending on what people are interested in the property. And the southern piece could be 1 large user, or it could be 5 or 6 smaller users. And you could potentially extend in a cul-de-sac at the corner of the L if you needed to get further into the parcel for further access. Important to note, the original site was 57 acres and includes everything that says McGinness Innovation Park and includes the green portion at the bottom as well. So roughly 17 acres was subdivided off or carved off as part of the reverse subdivision process That's land that would not have been usable for a business park due to slopes and terrain and historical artifacts and a quarry, just a whole variety of things that will make it a very interesting linear park, but would have made not very useful land in terms of redevelopment. So at this point in time, the white area measures roughly 42 acres, and I'm not sure what the park measures now, but it was somewhere in the 17-acre range, I think, when we started. And for everything that we talk about calculation-wise moving forward, we actually carved the recreation land out of all the calculations I'm going to take you through. And you can move up to the next slide.
And council, I just emailed you the updated thing, so you can see the numbers that John will actually reference, not what's on there.
The new version looks really nicer too. So I'm going to take you through just sort of the different iterations of the financial piece of this, where we started and where we are now. So after the borough purchased the parcel, preliminary drawings were done for what the redevelopment would look like and the work that would need to be done in order to actually make that happen. And to be clear, the original concept was the borough would buy the parcel, the piece of land, and the borough would take it fully through to full development with a road and infrastructure and sell parcels to end users. So all the pricing that you'll see was based on that. The column in green represents what we had as project costs at the time that we applied for funding from the state to help pay for the redevelopment, which is through BIOS, which is Business in Our Sites program. And that includes the very first line. You paid $1.6 million for the parcel. You'll see that we subtract $539,000 out for the value of the recreation land, because that's of the sale price, how much was allocated to that. And that's the piece of ground that you will continue to own. So that's not part of the calculation for the cost of redeveloping the business piece. If you add everything in the right-hand column together, you get to $10.5 million in purchase and development costs. And if you arrow down just a little tiny bit more, we did a Business in Our Sites application to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development for a $10.5 million project. Only $9 million of that was eligible for Business in Our Sites funding because they can't fund anything that you had already spent. So the purchase of the land counts as a project cost, but it's not eligible in figuring out the grant and the loan that you can get from the Business in Our Sites program. So it's about $9 million, and Business in Our Sites said you can apply for 40% of that as a grant and 60% of that as a loan that has attractive terms that you repay at the point at which you sell the parcels at the end of the development process. So our application at that point was for $3.6 million in grant funding and $5.4 million of loan funding. If you can go to the next slide. The state then, in the orange or gold column, then revised our project costs from $10.5 million down to $9.8 billion by removing $650,000 of contingency that we had in the original budget. This was priced in 2022 when inflation was running rampant, and so Rick Brenneman, who did the projections for us, had a pretty hefty contingency number in there. The state told us after we applied that there was a 5% limit on how much could be contingency, which they swore was in the guidelines, but it was not, because I went back and looked for it. But they took out $650,000. So that reduced our project cost for the application to $9.8 million. And in July of 2022, we received approval from the state for a $3.3 million grant and a $5 million loan in order to move the project forward. And when we begin to use that money, which we still have not needed to use, it will be drawn down 40% grant and 60% loan as we draw down money. So as the borough requests reimbursement, if you request reimbursement for $100, you get $40 as a grant and you get $60 as a loan that you'll have to repay. So this is an update on where we are And this is one of the charts that was updated in the new version. So you'll see that, and we can make that available as need be. But under the application column, just you'll see acres for sale. When we originally did the application for funding, it appeared that we'd have about 34 acres of land available to sell at the end of the project. Based on how much it was going to cost to redevelop the property, that would have come out to about $307,000 an acre, which was significantly above where the market for selling industrial land was in the county, which is part of the reason a private developer would not do a project like this. The break-even price based on where we were at the time and if we got the grant money came down to about $202,000 an acre, which at least got you in the ballpark of industrial land prices across the county. So let's jump over to the gold column, which is kind of where we are today. So for starters, the total acres that we expect to be available for sale when the project is complete is actually about 42 acres. So that's helpful in reducing the cost per acre for the project. The total development cost per acre of $249,000 is still based on the 2022 estimates for how much full redevelopment of the property would cost. So at this point, it's really just a number that sort of gets us in a ballpark. And then the break-even price per acre of $154,000 or so there, that would be the cost if you fully did the project, fully pulled down the grant and the loan, and needed to get repaid, how much money you've invested in it, and how much money you borrowed on the loan. So that would have been around, I think that says, I'm thinking it's $155,000 or so. I might have adjusted that number a tiny bit.
It is, it's adjusted a little bit, and the actual is now 155, 327, and 45 cents.
Right.
Is our break-even point.
And then the second gold chart actually has been changed, has been updated a little bit because that wasn't quite what I had there in that initial version is not correct. But let me just take you through a really condensed summary of expenditures and funding to this point. You purchased the land for $1.6 million.
John, I'm sorry. I just want to clarify one thing because I know everyone's thinking it. That 1.6 also includes the property on Franklin Street and also down on Plain. It's not just the McGinness parcel.
The McGinness purchase price was 1.495.
Correct.
Yep.
Did the sale of the 9th Street property across come out of that?
It's
coming up.
It's coming up.
Or it's coming up down
further
there.
down on here. Yep.
So 1.65, the adjustment for the removal of the parkland was subtracting $539,000 from that. Senator Almond was able to get you a grant for $1,002,000, which has really been what's taking care of pretty much all of the pre-development costs for the borough. The design, permitting, additional land purchases, studies, etc., have cost the borough about $1.3 million. And you've received about $172,000 from selling some of the other parcels. So that calculation at the bottom is actually wrong. It's actually about $1.26 million that net you have spent at this point in time to get it to the point where it's reverse subdivided and ready to be redeveloped. The path forward down below, that's actually been changed a tiny bit. Phase 0 is basically what we're finished at this point. It's the purchase of the parcel. It's going through all of the permitting, design, addressing issues, and getting to the point where we're ready to do development. There, we added a phase 0.5, which is the demolition, which you're expecting the bids on, or going to award the bids on 4/22. There's then phase 1, which is site stabilization, and that is going in, digging up the site, and taking out the subsoils that are not appropriate for building on. So there's a lot of fill material underneath the surface there, and you can't build a building with foundations on top of it or they will sink and crack. So stabilization, which was always part of the plan, is phase one, and that's the part that at this point, bid specs are just about complete, and the borough is just about at the point ready to bid that out and find out how much that component of it will cost. There remains then phase two, which would be if the borough would want to take the project to full development, meaning building the road, putting in water, sewer, gas, electric, and any other infrastructure that's necessary, and doing roughly final grading for users to come in and purchase the site. That would be phase two. So the question is, when does the borough sell this? Because ultimately, I assume that's what you really want to do. So if you go to the next slide, we started to look at 4 different options. Again, I apologize. On the other version, it's easier to read. The first option would be sell it in its entirety right now. I mean, you have technically added value to the property by getting it to the point of being ready to be redeveloped, but you haven't actually addressed the biggest issue that makes it not economically feasible to redevelop, which is the site stabilization. That's not a normal expense for a development project. It's a couple of $1 million extra costs that a private developer is not going to do, and this is where you want to be able to use the grant to help offset some of that project cost and write down what the cost will be for whoever ultimately buys it. The second option is, and I changed the words from remediate to stabilize because that's really more appropriate here, is stabilize the site and sell it in its entirety. So that would be bid out phase one as we've described it, do that work using the grant and loan money, and then look for someone to hire site from you just as a blank field that they can then develop to whatever specifications they want to do and whatever specifications the borough has tried to put in place to help make sure you get what you want out of that. So that's basically stabilize it, sell it after the next phase. The third option is, and those are actually numbered wrong too, so I made a lot of corrections on the new version. The third
I'm
option,
sorry, John, I
that's
screwed it
okay.
up.
The third, it helps me actually to talk through. The third option is stabilize, develop, and sell in entirety. So that's do phase one, stabilize it, and then actually do phase two. Put in all of the infrastructure and then sell it as one large parcel, potentially to a developer. And then option 4 would be to stabilize it, develop it, and actually sell individual parcels to people where you guys really are truly acting as the full developer all the way through the process. So the questions and the challenges that we have at this point, or the recommended path forward, all of which kind of goes together. Number one, the first step is to do the demolition and bid out phase one for the stabilization work and do the stabilization work, because that addresses, again, the biggest challenge that a private developer is going to have in moving the project forward. At the time, once we know what phase one is going to cost, then the recommendation would be that the borough get updated pricing from Rick Brenneman on what he thinks phase two will cost, now that he has seen what phase one cost and what will be left to do. And as well, get Angela Tracy, who did the original appraisal, to update the values of the parcel based on A, what does she think it will be worth at the end of phase one per acre, and what does she think it will be worth at the end of phase two development. That then gives you guys some solid information to make a decision on, hey, do we sell this at the end of phase one because that will get us out with what we want, or do we wait and sell it at the end of phase two or some version in between, because at that point we get out. And that's where I think there is a next step of a piece of additional information that we should look at in order to make sure that you guys are making a good decision. The other piece in there is making sure that whatever you do before you sell it, that it ensures that you've laid out whatever paper streets you want, and you've looked at zoning and planning and everything to ensure that hopefully you get whatever type of use that you want there, so that everybody's pleased ultimately with what happens when the property is fully developed, if in fact you all aren't the ones who actually ultimately develop it. During phase one, you can actually decide to start to market it and see what interest there is from private developers to potentially buy the whole thing at once at the end of phase one. And you can decide we like or don't like the results there, which can help make the decision on whether to pursue phase two or look at some different way to potentially get through to phase two. And ultimately, somewhere along the way in there, you sell it, you recoup your investment in the property, and you repay the BIOS loan however much you've drawn down. And the state is fine. We actually just got the BIOS grant contract actually ends on June 30th of this year, and the state just gave us an extension to June 30th of next year to start to draw down the grant. And the state is fine. If you only do phase one and you only draw down part of the money, they're fine because they still have money that they can give to other people. And if you draw down all the money, they're fine with that too because they made the commitment to fund that. And ultimately, it becomes a tax generating parcel. I think that the rough estimates of what tax it could generate for the community was around $1.2 million a year of borough, school district, and county taxes back when we looked at just doing some reasonable assumptions on what development would happen there. Anything I didn't cover that anybody?
Just questions?
Yeah, questions?
First, Derek, I think you said this last week or week before, when do we expect the stabilization to be completed?
We are looking at the meeting of April 22nd, which will be kind of decision day for council. At that meeting, council will be discussing closing on the BIOS loan because you need the loan to move forward with phase one, as John mentioned in his presentation. So sketching out schedule, I think on April 22nd, council decides whether you're going to take the loan. Assuming that's a yes, then the next vote is going to be to authorize the advertisement of the stabilization of phase one. You'll have about a month of bidding, another, 30 days of contract mobilization. So we're shooting for July. Get started and then finish up September.
Okay, so based on that timeline, which isn't that far away, not when you're talking about this, I like the thought of, let me back up a second. I have had interested parties contact me and talk to me. I know others have had interested parties contact them and talk to them. With that timeline, it seems prudent to me to get it to the end of phase one, get with an economic development company, kind of like we did with the Turkey Hill experience, let them do the marketing and everything, come back to us. What they did in Turkey Hill, they came back to us and said, we got a person that wants to buy this for X amount of dollars. This is what they want to do there. And you say yes or no and move on. I would like to see us move on that this year that way with phase one, get it to an EDC rather than go out on a bid, let the borough do the bidding. I've been through that with the Turkey Hill experience, and we ended up going after about a year's wasted time going back to an EDC and finally selling the property. But that's the way I would say, in my mind, that's the way I think the borough should go. Get to phase one. There are people out there who want to buy it. Let's get talking and started. And I think the sooner you get with an EDC and start putting that contract and all together, the better. Then we can get out from underneath this thing, get something developed there, and show, as John said, the tax, what we can make as far as the taxes, the jobs, and everything else that are associated with the development. To me, that's the best way out.
I have two questions regarding that, and one is just to clarify. We only have to take as much of the loan as it would cost us to do the remediation, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
Well,
drawdown.
you're gonna,
And then-
let me clarify that, Barb. You're
Okay.
going to close on the entirety of the loan. It doesn't mean you have to draw the entirety of it.
Okay,
So you'll close on the, what is it, Johnny?
5 million roughly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
5 million loan, and then you have that grant, that's 60/40. So as you use it, you're building your balance up that you'll have to pay back.
It's a
It's not like you're not gonna get a check and then have to pay it all back.
It's a
As you use it.
reimbursement
Yep.
loan. So like we incur the expenses, we pay them, and then we submit that information and we get the reimbursement for it.
okay, my next question is, and I hadn't thought of this before I read what he has written here. Once we sell it to a developer, what's to say that person would not develop it for like 10 years and we wouldn't get the tax revenue that we had hoped right away?
And that's the risk. And that's one of the risks is, you know, you want to make sure that that's the whole thing of, you know, we want to get it past the point of no return. You know, we don't want it to lay fallow. We want it to be.
But how do we ensure that
There-
when a developer buys it, he's going to start developing, or she?
That's the questions and probably some of the things that you can put in with a contract. You can say, okay, this is what you want to do. You're going to put this in. When do you expect, you know, development? And even if you don't start development, I've seen some instances where if they don't start development, they start paying you
Is that
for it foundering.
okay? Okay. Thank you.
On the BIOS, how long of a turnaround is that in terms of the reimbursement?
Are you ready for this?
Yeah, you're not gonna believe this.
You're not going to believe this. 72 hours.
72 hours, all right.
Yes.
They swear they're really good at getting the
Yeah, they
checks
said
out
they're
once you
really
get
good
them
at
the right
getting, I mean, we
information.
submit the stuff, they examine it, and we have a check, and if they wire it to us, it can be even faster than that.
Better than RCAP.
Perfect.
Yes, that was exactly my question. I was like, now how soon can we get the money? Because, you know, we're still waiting on rec fee money. And he's like, oh, 72 hours. I said, are you serious? Yeah, we almost fell over. So, oh, and also with the bios, there are some expenses that we have incurred above that initial $1 million grant that we got. Since that was all incurred after the bios was approved, after we were approved for the bios, as soon as we close on bios, we can submit that information and get reimbursed. That money can be rolled in. It's a couple $100,000.
Like
can be rolled in.
265,000, something like that.
Yeah, we can get that reimbursed right away.
As well as the fee for the demo.
Yes, and the demolition can also be paid for as well.
Yep.
And as John alluded to, we were kind of looking at the timeline. April 22nd is the meeting. We are planning to accept the bids for demo. And then we would also be looking to approve closing on bios, advertise the stabilization for phase one. And then we were also talking that I think it's important for the public to actually get a visual of what's going on. So we're talking about a groundbreaking May 2nd, Friday, May 2nd. Because the guys from Bio said if we can get on a date far enough out, they could get the secretary down here, possibly the governor. We want to be able to get Miller. We'd like to try and get Almond to come because he was very instrumental in this. County commissioners, this is a big deal. As it was like a little bit. So that's and that way, if we do it then, it happens before the demo. We're not in anyone's way. We're not stepping on anyone, whatever. So.
I had a question on the biostructure adjusted and then the break even. So I'm looking at the updated version, but the total would be 9.8 all in at the bottom of the gold column there.
Yes.
Is that including all of the original main site improvement listed in the above table? Or is that just phase one?
That is the all-in amount on this, that was the BIOS, the original BIOS
Mhm.
numbers.
So that would be if we went through phase, I mean, obviously
one
we,
and
we have
two.
to find out what phase one is actually going to run.
Right.
But then these numbers and the breakdown as far as our break-even price, that would include that entire table.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
And
helpful information, because if we stop at phase one, that break-even price is going to be much lower
Right.
as far as what we need to get for it
Yes.
to get out.
It is, and we'll have a better, I mean, even without, I believe that once we see the actual cost, the estimate or the bids for phase one, we'll be able to have a good idea, like, oh, it went up by, 20% from Rick Brenneman. We can kind of extrapolate a little and get an idea. But it is a good idea to have, I think it's a good idea to still have Rick Brenneman come in, because that's going to be how we make our most informed decision, is with those numbers. I will point out on the page that is up on the screen now, there are 2 lines in there. This main site improvement includes phase 1 and phase 2. I didn't want people to get confused and think that was just for phase 2, because there's line items in there like the geotechnical remediation and earthwork. That's all what we would consider phase 1.
If you were to go the whole way through to phase 2, I think once you start doing something to the land, phase 1, you have a clean slate.
Yep.
And that's attractive to anybody that's interested in the property. Once you get into phase 2 and you start laying roads in, infrastructure, doing some of those kind of things, you start limiting your pool of potential buyers, because it may not fit what you've carved out, may not fit what they want. I like the idea of a clean slate and let them do. I have fear that as you get into there and start laying out things, and I remember early on talking about parcels, that you may end up with several parcels that no one's interested in, and they're growing weeds.
Right.
I would much rather see one developer purchase the property, do what they need to do with the property.
Right. I think the thing about phase 2 is, we could also, if we do phase 1, correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, but I think I remember hearing that now that we have our NPDES permit, if we do go on to phase 2, we can extend that permit. We can just update it.
It's called a major modification.
Yeah.
So the permit you have right now only covers earth disturbance. There's no post-construction stormwater or any other hardscape improvements included in that. But if the borough decides that they want to proceed, then we start designing those components and you update your current permit to include them.
Right. And it won't take it'll be a little bit of time will come off of there. So, what I'm thinking is, if we do have a developer that's interested and they want some of that additional benefit of that our grant and loan would afford them to bring down that cost per acre a little bit, maybe they want to work with us and we say, okay, we'll do it up to X number of dollars, whatever we have left in the grant loan, and do what they want.
Yes, that makes it attractive, because, and your last statement, Heather, was the key to it. Do what they want, not the way we figure a street or something should be laid out. Do what they want. In other words, partner with them and use that money, which makes it more attractive to purchase. If they're going to purchase it and they're going to get a break on some of the infrastructure costs. but it's going to be done the way they want it, not the way anybody envisions it.
Right. Yep. But yeah, I mean, so that's it.
Can you explain some more about the possibility of partnering with a developer? Because I don't necessarily agree or understand it.
So, I mean, the simplest thing is you sell it to a developer at some point. But
Exactly.
I think there's the scenario of you do phase one and you still have some grant money left over that you haven't used. Then we figure out some way to take it a little further along and use all that, and then maybe then transition to a developer. Some sort of agreement in advance of that. But that's one of those, you can't really figure that out till you get there.
So-
Kind of situations.
Yeah.
And if we would do it like that, we would be able to transfer the MPDES permit to that developer, which helps them out also because they're not taking that time.
It would probably cut down well over a year of their construction costs.
Yes. Yeah, because look, it took us.
So we can't
15
transfer it
months.
on sale?
Transfer the MPDS permit?
Yes.
You could transfer it tomorrow if you want to.
Yep.
It's all who the
So it
responsible
doesn't
party
matter
is.
how much we're involved once we sell?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but in order to,
They would really, if you sold the land and transferred the MPDS permit, whoever the new permittee would be would release the borough of their responsibilities as a permittee. That's how that would work.
Right.
and if they have changes from what we have put into our application, then that's on them to get that permit modified.
Right.
But if we've already gone through the permit modification part, the major modification, while we've been working with them, it cuts down on the time because otherwise we transfer it to them and they're gonna have to go through that process when we could have been going through that process while we were waiting to close on property.
I will just mention one thing, that if it gets to a point where you want to work with the developer, we're going to have to make sure that any agreement is airtight, because you don't want to start spending that money to customize it for someone.
Right.
And then they walk away.
Yep.
That's, that will be a bad, it certainly is a possibility.
See,
but
that's where I get concerned, because now you're saying we'll modify our plans to suit you, but they're not gonna pay us until the plans are modified so they can have access to the grant money. So we end up spending all our money, all available money, and they get what they want. They close on a deal, we have to pay it all back. I'd rather just move forward.
Yeah,
Make it real estate.
move forward is fine, but if you can build in a contingency that if they walk away,
absolutely.
you know, that's what
And
happens.
every improvement
I
you do out
understand
there is going to
that.
bring
And-
increased value back.
And in 10, 15 years, you'll win the case. I get it.
Yeah.
And then another 10 years, they'll pay it. I get it.
You
But Columbia's
are
not in a
wrong.
position to wait that long.
Well, and that's why I'm saying, take your money and run.
Right.
It's-
I mean, I'd rather have that.
Stabilize it, sell it, and get moving.
I'd rather have the discussion of, do we sell in lots or do we sell it as a whole? And I agree with that, but I think council should have that decision. And then we go backwards and say, okay, if we're selling it as a whole, do we sell it after development or after stabilization? And I think that's where we're at. And I don't think, I'm not sure waiting on dollar amounts is really,
Well, I think it is, because how can you make an informed decision unless you know what it's going to be worth, what it's going to cost us to do each phase, and knowing that cost per acre break even point? And I mean, you don't want to make a decision now only to find out that the money you think you're getting is not what you're going to get.
It's all a matter of how much are you going to spend to get back how much? And that's
Right.
where, what John mentioned, Angela Tracy with her updated
right.
appraisals is really
I
going to
don't
be helpful.
disagree with, I understand that.
Yeah.
My point is, if I can sell it tomorrow and still come out ahead versus sell it in a year from now and either come out ahead or break even, even though that's still good, that's a year later.
I think the interesting, you have two branches on your decision tree here. Is the one branch that you're hitting on, Eric, is the money that the borough has into it versus making yourself whole at the end.
Exactly.
And Barb hit on the other one, is making sure that you're putting enough money into the project to make it appealing enough to get it developed as soon as possible. You don't want to end up, as the mayor alluded to, you don't want to end up selling it and making yourself whole, but then having it sit there for 10 years because you didn't accomplish the goal that you had to go into it. On the flip side, you don't want to put money into the project to build improvements that don't add value. So you might get closer to the tax rolls, which might be your ultimate goal, but you could lose your you-know-what on the sale. So there is no cut and dry answer here. I think that's why John's decision tree is very important for council to use moving forward, and will need to be consulted frequently as you hit milestones in the project to decide
I would say more frequently.
exit stage right or proceed.
I truly believe by the time you get to the end of phase one, you'll have an idea. Put it this way, I think you'll have it sold. But you'll have an idea if you need to go on to phase two or not, based on the interest you have on the site.
But that's part of my point, though. I don't want to wait till one phase is done to start deciding on the next phase.
Well, that's going to depend on who's
Well,
interested
yeah,
in the
that-
site. Let's get those conversations
You're going to be,
today.
I always said,
find out
phase
who's
two to me is you're building something in there, you don't know if they want it or not.
Right.
That's what I don't like.
Right.
Derek, what percentage of the property are we going to remediate in phase one? What percentage of those acres is going into that bid packet?
Of the 41 acres,
Yeah.
16 or 17.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was like somewhere in the 40s to near 50% of that total area was gonna be.
That's kind, yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one, Pete. I can tell you what the limit of disturbance is the entire thing, but it doesn't mean we're doing a deep dive in the full remediation. I did stabilization, excuse me.
Because most of that middle is
Yeah.
not.
Right. Recall at our last meeting that the last time we spoke about this, we did discuss about, keeping the ends of the runway per se. We weren't going to do a full blown stabilization there.
Deep dynamic.
There are also areas of the main 41 acres that don't require that they don't have the level of fill that other areas do. It's as you get into the center of the site, kind of heading down towards the quarry, that's where the really, really heavy fill is. I mean, when you're up close to Manor Street, there's very little work that needs to be done up there. That's close to historic grade. So it's going to vary. I'll say a large percentage of the property will be affected and will be stabilized, but in different extremes.
And we will be removing the deleterious
materials.
Yes.
material.
I guess the way I see this is, on one hand, I want us to sell it tomorrow and for a profit. If we're 1.2 in the red right now, if we could not be in the red and actually be in the black on the whole project, that sounds great. But on the other hand, what if at this point, I guess my concerns, and I think this has been already spoken, is that it's not far enough along that it's going to be developed to the extent that we want it to be developed.
Yep.
And so, a developer could come, purchase the property, and basically build the front section that doesn't need much remediation at all. And then the rest of it just remains fallow.
Where we end up like the old drive-in.
What's that?
We end up like the old drive-in and it just sits there.
Yeah.
With, half
Yeah.
telephone poles blocking the entrance.
It's a good point, Pete, because something we've spoken about it, and John, that I'm quoting you, is you take the it was good. But you discussed during the one meeting going forward with this phase one, it takes a lot of the uncertainties away.
Yep.
And that uncertainties cost money when you're selling land.
Yeah.
So if we can go through phase one and eliminate all of those uncertainties that exist out there and get the land stabilized, that's where, you know, the team is recommending you're going to see a good return. If you didn't even think about the scenario where you could sell it tomorrow and the areas that are easy to develop may get stabilized. And you're right. So maybe the 20 acres closest to Manor Street, you get something on, and then the back half just sits there forever unusable. So again, I know that the goal of council when this project was started was to maximize, basically to get in there and maximize your tax base. And I know that was reiterated a couple of weeks ago. So,
Yeah, like I said, the last thing we need is to get a great price for it. But then a guy might have a project that he knows is 5, 6, 7 years down the road, but now I got a great space for it. So he sits on it for 5, 6, 7 years. That's not going to help our situation either.
Well, okay, so hold on a second. I think we're losing sight here. It was a clean and green farm site,
Correct.
which we were getting basically nothing for in tax revenue.
Correct.
$3,000 a year. So
Correct.
Yep.
It is now zoned commercial or light industrial, whatever. Light industrial. Okay? That has value. So if they leave the land vacant or not, it still has more value than the clean and green farming. So if we would break, I'm not saying to sell today because I think we need to do all the
stabilization.
Yep. Get rid of the deleterious material.
Exactly. I think we need to do that to make it a more entertaining offer to people, to contractors. But once we sell it, I really don't care what happens to it. My biggest goal is to make it right, break even, and get it out into the tax market. We could sell it to a contractor tomorrow because they're going to promise us the world, and the bottom of the economy falls out. Nothing happens for years, but it's still to the point where we wanted it, and that's our goal. And I think that where we had phase 2 or 3 or whatever, where the roads came into play, that's when we were counting on the drones to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Since the drones aren't going to be there, and we kind of all agree, I believe, that we sell as a whole lot, I don't see why we go much further. There may be a phase 2 of curb cuts and perimeter sidewalks. But outside of that, I don't think we want to stick too much more money into that.
I agree. I really don't want to see it go past that initial phase personally, because I just think we're entering into a place then where it's a far more complicated project that takes that just as a local government, we aren't set up to be a developer.
Right.
But our point in this whole thing was to get it to a place, like you said, where it's in a good place to be sold to developers who can take it to a final site plan.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thought of being able to get out of this by the end of the year would be great. But again, my biggest concern is I want it past that point of no return. I want it to be as attractive as possible to get development as soon as possible. I don't want a drive-in.
I understand that. But once we sell, we have no control over that. We have no control over it, period.
No, we don't, but we can make sure when we do sell it that we have someone that is interested in developing it ASAP.
You can build some things into the sale.
Yep, I know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there would be certainly an agreement of sale, and possibly after that, as they're going through the land development process, you would have a developer's agreement, and Derek is certainly very familiar with those as well, that you can put some guardrails on there because, yeah, I mean, the whole idea is to increase your tax base. And if it sits there without anything being built on it for a long period of time, you're not going to do that. So we can definitely try to ensure that.
I'm just gonna say one more thing. I was in favor of this project. I voted for it. That was what, 4 years ago? And we haven't done anything but tear a house down. I don't believe the borough should be in a real estate business. I like the idea of transferring it from clean and green to light business, but I think we've spent too much time in this already.
Well, unfortunately, that's the nature of development is, everyone thinks, oh, they're not doing anything. A lot has happened. It's just all been in the background because, I mean, MPDES permit alone took us 15 months.
But this all wasn't just design and permitting. We waited for the drones for a while too. We got caught up in that mess.
Well, I mean, we were marching forward even while we were waiting for them. It wasn't like we didn't do anything while we were waiting.
I'm not. This isn't a blame.
Oh no, I get what you're saying. I mean, I was frustrated too.
I'm ready to move forward.
Oh yeah.
So I'll say one more thing, and I think maybe Mayor, you mentioned this about the EDC. What is preventing us at the point of accepting a bid package for phase 1 from transferring the property at that point to the EDC with that packet accepted, with that work under contract, and to get the sale and interested buyers on the site as soon as possible?
We have to keep ownership of it as long as we have the bios, right?
Yeah, we'd have to look, we'd have to wander through how that would work.
I guess
just because the grant and the loan for you to have the loan, you have to own the property. You have to have equitable interest in it.
If we transfer it to the EDC, is that our ownership? Is that an agreement or is that an actual transfer of the title?
I mean, it wouldn't have to happen right then. I mean, but you also don't have to have the property transferred for the EDC to market it.
Right. So that's my point, is enter into an agreement as soon as we land on a bid packet for remediation for phase 1, is contract the EDC to sell it for us. The EDC, if I'm understanding the other properties that we're selling, they only hold it for momentarily, 24 hours max.
Yes, yeah.
So we would still maintain ownership and wouldn't violate our BIOS funding in that if we contracted the EDC to sell it for us at a specific price where we can get out on top.
Yeah, you're right. And the trick to that is when you do that, and as you said, within the same day you can do this, and that's Turkey Hill was done within the same day. Then you don't have to go out on the bid process.
I guess my reasoning.
The EDC can accept bids on their own.
My reasoning for saying this is because we're bidding it out. The work starts in July. At best, it finishes in September. If we wait until then to start the marketing process, it's going to be next spring, it's going to be next fall till it's sold. And this is the type of thing, if I was owning a piece of property, getting it ready for sale, I would have prospective buyers walking on it while the caterpillars are pushing dirt around. Look at this site. Look at all this beautiful dirt.
Yep.
So I think I agree with what you're saying. I think our next step is to have a meeting with phase 2 numbers and possible phase 3 numbers. And then maybe even before the actual bids come in, make a decision off of that and move forward. But I don't want to keep.
So
I think you also want to be careful and make sure that throughout this process, change orders can happen, right? You don't want to agree to a sales price based upon the estimate that you've gotten for the work in, in phase one, and then all of a sudden it costs $200,000 more, and so just.
But we have a loan for that.
But you're still got to pay it back, but then you'd be out that
Then we'd
money.
be out the money.
Where you could have possibly recouped that if you knew what the sale was.
Well, that's
Uh-huh.
where we build in a contingency as a part of our budget at what we need to break even on. We build in that contingency into a price that we would be willing to sell the property for, so that EDC could start marketing it for us. And then if they don't find any prospective buyers for that marketing price, then at that point, we're at the next phase and can consider that and what more we need to put into it to make it marketable.
You could certainly do a marketing agreement with them.
Right.
Right, which is what you've done in the past on some of these properties. And we can, during the time of phase one, negotiate the terms of the agreement of sale with them, not knowing exactly what the number may end up being, but then have that ready to go and allow them to market the property while you're doing that, if that's how you wanted to do it. That might just be a little bit safer way to go about that. But that's all stuff we can certainly figure out and work with to try to get this.
All
sold
I'm
as
saying
quick
is,
as
I remember 2 days ago it was January 1st. It's now April, or going to be April next week. You're saying, not you personally, we're saying that July could be the start date and September could be the finish date. We tend to be very slow in here. I don't want to sit back and September rolls around and we say, okay, now what's our next step? Let's sit here and decide. Let's vote to move to the EDC. Well, by then, like Peter said, we're now in the holidays and we're looking at next year of hopefully
Budget season.
So I just, with all due respect, gentlemen, because you guys have been a phenomenal partner.
Absolutely.
It's not that I don't.
Absolutely.
The times that we have transferred to the EDC, this is what I don't want to see happen. We have in that agreement, we have to say, this is how much the EDC is going to pay us for this property. I don't want us to set a price only to find, based on just breaking even, only to find out we could have gotten $3 or $4 million more, and these guys are now walking away with that profit that we could have made. I don't want to see that happen. Again, I love you guys.
Just to be clear, we wouldn't do that.
Okay, but
They could do that. They could do that now, even with their eyes wide open.
But Heather, that's why the transfer of property is such a short window. That can't happen.
well, no, it can, because if we tell them we want $4 million for it, and they pay us $4 million, they can charge the other people $7 million or $8 million.
I think people they will be coming back to you. The EDC will be coming back to you saying, I have someone interested in this property and they're willing to pay X amount of dollars.
Yeah, and that's what I want to see happen. I don't want to see
us
set that price, because that's what we did with the firehouse, and that's what we did with the sewer plant.
Yes, that was a mistake.
And yes,
I
don't want to do that again.
No, you want them to come back
Yes.
telling you how much they can get for this property.
Yes.
And then you say yes or no.
I mean, I want you guys to make money, but I
think we need to investigate further with Evan, like how to structure something like that,
Yeah.
so that everybody's protected.
Yes.
Absolutely. We really just haven't had that conversation.
Yeah. But yeah, so is there any other questions, comments, or concerns? Is one open to the public? Do you have questions? Yes. Do you have a question? All right.
Yeah. How long did you say you was working on this? Say it again.
Rebecca Denling was here.
Well, give me a
Four managers ago.
3.
5 years.
5 years.
I've been working on it 5 years.
Yeah, it's 18.
Rebecca was
Well,
here for 15
Well,
days.
Frank, let's clarify that. He has not been working on this specific design all that time. It was the previous discussions when Rebecca was here, when they were looking at it last time. He's talking about overall this property. He's been in different conversations about it since back then, but he has only been working on this specific project since 22. Yeah, since we bought it.
Okay. Well, what you presented is a lot to consume, but I kind of followed you pretty good there, and you lost me a couple different places. But you're talking about 4 phases. In order to do the first phase, am I correct? We have to take the $5 million loan out.
We close, Frank, the way it works, did you ever have a construction loan for a house?
No, never had to
So
do that.
you have to close on the whole amount. So we have to sign the paperwork and whatever. But we don't have to take all of that
We're talking
money.
about the loan, right?
Right.
But do we have to take that loan or even
Yes.
sign up for it in order to do the first phase?
Yes, we do. Even to
Okay.
do, well, we should do that for the demolition as well.
Okay.
You could
My
you
prob-
could choose to pay. Let me add, no, council could choose not to close on the loan. However, then you would have to pay for this out of capital. It would be very wise to close on the loan, especially since
No,
you are
we
getting
don't- We don't have the money.
there. So there you go. So there you go. So you have to, but I think the point to drive home about the BIOS is the 60-40 split that John B. Miller brought up is for every $100 you spend, only $60 of that goes into the loan. The other 40 is covered. It's a grant.
Okay. There's 4 phases we can do. At this point, how much money do we have? If we agree to the $5 million loan, how far can we go into the phases with the money that we have?
We won't know until we get updated numbers. The numbers that we have, Frank, are from 2022, and costs have gone up exponentially since then. So we don't really know. I mean, we planned for about $2.5 million for the stabilization part. We won't know till we start seeing the bids for that, if that number is good or how high it's gone.
How satisfied is everyone of what is out there? That if when you bid it out and they find terrible things more, and now here goes the cost, and it's very possible this could happen because you just talked about the cost of living going up. There's another cost, and I'm just wondering how deep we're going to get into this. Do we have enough to do the first loan? Or I mean the first phase, I'm sorry.
Yes.
We have enough money to do the first phase. Do you have enough money to do the second phase?
I can't say that for sure until we have numbers.
Yeah. The numbers you have that you had on the screen, where do you get your numbers?
They were estimated by Graham Site Construction, based on the original plan for the site.
Okay, yeah, because I kept looking at them. I thought, wonder how you got them when you didn't bid it out. You didn't do nothing that way.
Yeah, that was in our pro formas that were done as part of our due diligence
Okay,
at the
and
beginning.
I'd asked this question before council. What's going to take place with the quarry?
That's preserve.
Yeah, it's there.
It's just gonna
nothing's
sit
being
there?
touched during this. It's not being touched during this project.
Okay, and how about the park, like for families and whatever?
It's not happening yet until we get
There's no plans for that.
not yet, no.
Okay. Yeah, and what you passed out, is there a chance the public can get a hold of that?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah, that would have been nice if,
well, it was in the packet. But we can certainly put this updated one on the website.
That was in our packet we just got?
It's on the screen right there. It's on the
I looked at that, I went through it real fast, so that's my fault.
Yeah, it was in the packet.
Yeah, I probably have a lot more questions, but that kind of helped me. Thank you.
Anyone else? Very exciting that after all this time, it can finally start to move. Just very excited. Final call.
No, just let me say, I thought it was great for John and Ezra to be here
Yep.
and to lay this out. I think everybody has a better knowledge of where we're headed since you've done that presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
I told you, I thought it was a good presentation, so it was awesome.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, gentlemen. All right. All right, action items. Could I have a motion to approve the bill payments?
So moved.
A motion by Councilperson Murphy, second by Councilperson Geezy to authorize the bill payments. Are there any questions, comments on bills? No, I have a motion by Councilperson Murphy, second by Councilperson Geezy, to authorize the bill payments. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Next, we have, could I have a motion to authorize staff to extend an offer of employment to Kathy Ritchie for the position of janitor at an hourly rate of $20.25 for 20 hours per week?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilperson Murphy, second by Councilperson Brigard, to authorize staff to extend an offer of employment to Kathy Ritchie for the position of janitor at an hourly rate of $20.25 for 20 hours per week. Questions?
Is she here?
No. Seeing
Sorry,
none?
Jack. Is she one of yours?
Yes, she is.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, I was surprised I didn't, well, I guess that'll be like 2 down the road. I'll get the authorization to hire the.
She has agreed to stay on for the remainder of the school year, so that's going to be helpful.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right. So I have a motion by Councilperson Murphy, second by Councilperson Brigard, to authorize staff to extend an offer of employment to Kathy Ritchie for the position of janitor.
Richie?
Richie? And is it Richie? Okay. I said it different every time because I wasn't sure. At a rate of $20.25 per hour for 20 hours per week. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Next, could I have a motion to ratify the termination of the market manager?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilperson Murphy, second by Councilperson Kaufman to ratify the termination of the market manager. At this time, Steve, Borough Manager, would like to make a statement.
So although I can't talk about the reasons that I had to terminate Chris, I want to make it known that it wasn't an easy decision, but it was my decision as Borough Manager. Okay, I appreciate council backing me of that, but I believe council's been getting quite a bit of gruff, so to speak, on social media and things of that sort. As Borough Manager, sometimes you need to make those tough decisions, and this happened to be that case. So I just wanted to let you know that the sole decision to terminate Chris was mine.
I have a motion by Councilperson Murphy, second by Councilperson Kaufman to ratify the termination of the yes, Frank.
The staff there. Chris was always, he was always a good friend. And what I liked about him, he wasn't a smart ass. I could go over there and joke with him. We could talk about something on the fan up in the ceiling and different things like that. I had called him when he's left go over there. He never called me back. But like I say, he's still a good friend of mine. I don't know what he's done, but council didn't make it great or easy by saying he's not allowed on the property, on the borough property. I don't know where you people are coming from when you bring that out. That's of all. I've been coming to council for over 50 years. I've never heard that one time, and I don't know how you can actually do that. What if you got to come in here and pay a bill? What if he gets a ticket? You got to go pay the ticket. He's not allowed on borough property. Come on.
Frank, for one, this is news to me. So to say that council did that, I had no idea that was done till tonight, and I heard it from you guys.
You didn't know that he had a letter. Well, but I thought council makes some decisions. I didn't think the borough manager made that without council.
That's a legal decision, and that is done by our solicitor.
And then by doing that, to me, that's serious. And it tells me this ain't management's duties. This is something else. And it gives you that intent that there is something else. And I just can't buy it, but I don't know how I can do that. Who actually fired Chris?
I do.
You fired Chris, okay.
I want to clear up something real quick about that, though. He recommended to you to fire Chris. It needed to happen immediately, but council ultimately, pursuant to your borough code, is the one who is the decision maker on that.
Yes,
So I just
and
want to be
that's what
clear.
we're doing right now, is we're ratifying
Yeah,
that.
I had asked, I know council hires and fires. That's the way I was always taught. From coming here, even when I was on council, that's the way it always was and always will be. But I was taught council don't have to terminate him by a vote of council. And to me, that was wrong. And
Yeah, that was my misunderstanding, Frank, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And that's why I put it on for tonight.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and I wasn't going to, hold you out on that. But you just, council, there's something wrong that you tell a person he can't. Now, Chris is not a citizen of the borough. I think he's from down in the manor, I think. But still, to say that you're not allowed on borough property, I'm sorry, I can't buy that. I think you ought to relook at that somehow, but that's not me to tell you to do that, but that's just not right. Thank you.
Let me say that this has happened quite a few times in the past.
Yes.
This is the most standard procedure. I don't want to speak any more on it.
Tell me who was ever not allowed on borough property that was fired.
Probably everybody that left, including officers.
What?
Including officers. It's a standard management decision.
So if Chris come in to pay a bill, he's liable to be arrested or whatever. Am I correct?
Yeah.
That's the way the letter reads.
That is correct. Now, part of that letter, right, is that he is not a resident of the borough.
Right.
So there's far less reason for him to ever come onto borough property if he's not an employee of the borough, which he no longer is. So I'll leave that out there. I think, in an emergency situation, you be reasonable, but the intent of that letter was that he not come back on borough property. That is absolutely correct.
Yeah, still. Thank you.
All right. I have a motion by Councilperson Murphy, second by Councilperson Kaufman, to ratify the termination of the market manager. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Next, could I have a motion to authorize staff to advertise the position of highway worker 2?
So, second.
A motion by Councilperson Stahl, second by Councilperson Kaufman, to authorize staff to advertise the position of Highway Worker 2. And this is to advertise for Justin Meisel's position that we accepted, or that we acknowledged resignation of. Any questions, comments, concerns? I have just one. I know last time we were trying to get this position, we had a hard time. Can we do it if we have 2 laborers and not?
But the CDL is required.
The CDL is required for the highway worker, but we couldn't get that last time, so we ended up hiring the laborer. If we have to do that again, are we in a bad spot?
I'm fine if we have to do that again. It'd be nice to get somebody in there with a CDL.
Yep,
But if it kind of goes like it did last time,
that's what we'll have to do. I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to be in a bad spot if we had to go to that route again. All right, I have a motion by Councilperson Stahl, second by Councilperson Kaufman, to authorize staff to advertise the position of Highway Worker 2. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Next, we're asked to consider approval for Mount Bethel Cemetery to host the Last Ride Hearst Car Show, crafts and food trucks in the 600 block of Locust Street on Saturday, June 21st from 8 to 4:30, contingent upon receipt of required certificate of insurance, food truck documentation, and the event application fee. We had talked about this at when we approved the car show, and we said there was interest in having Mount Bethel extend. So this is just the formality of extending that. Yeah, yes. So we'll be closing off. We'll be keeping Locust Street closed up to 7.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Sexton. I'm the superintendent for Mount Bethel Cemetery. We had received the email from Pam earlier today in regards to everything else that needs to be finalized for us to have that. We are a nonprofit cemetery. We've actually come to you folks for a donation each year. We are asking for the $50 fee to be waived for that to happen.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Brian, the $50 check was dropped off this afternoon, along with the certificate of insurance and other paperwork.
Understood. I knew about the insurance, but
Yeah.
she didn't say that though. Okay, thanks.
She took care of it.
Wonderful. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Does anyone have any questions on this application? Does anyone have a problem voting on it?
No.
Do I have a motion to approve Mount Bethel Cemetery to host the Last Ride Hearst Car Show?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilperson Kaufman, second by Councilperson Murphy, to approve Mount Bethel Cemetery to host the Last Ride Hearst Car Show, crafts and food trucks in the 600 block of Locust Street on Saturday, June 21st, 2025, from 8 to 4:30, not contingent upon receipt of insurance.
That's correct.
Upon receipt of the required food truck documentation. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Me this year. All right. Next, we are asked to consider authorizing staff to order 100 copies of professionally printed 2040 executive summary. This is like the summary document for the comp plan.
So I have a comment on this. I'm not sure 100 copies is necessary, but I don't know what the cost is. My second comment would be, we have a local printer. I would like Columbia Borough to start using our local printers and local businesses as much as possible. Now, if the price is not comparable, I understand that, but
I believe before that was the issue, was the cost was.
That has been the past issues.
Okay,
but we can still look into it again.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
I have something to say about
Go ahead.
costs.
Come on up.
Yep, come up to the mic, please.
Hi, guys. My name's Chris, the owner of Art Printing, Locust Street. So as far as the printing goes, we'd love to have you guys use a local printer here in town. And if there's any problem with cost, you let me know and I'll beat the next person. So keep it in town. I'll be happy to help you out.
Chris, you already have the bid, so you don't have to sell it. Thank you.
Is there a way we came up with 100, or could we start with 25 and then?
That's
what
the economy of scale. The more copies you order, the less it is.
Yeah, but they
Per
could
copy.
play around.
Planning
Play around
is
and you don't use
requesting the 100.
Planning is.
So I need to go to planning to ask why they need 100.
Correct, because I also did that.
All right, thank you.
And they want to stick with 100, so.
So if you asked them why they need 100, what was the answer?
It was for council to each have one. It was for planning to each have one, and anybody that comes in for them.
We already have a
Again, that's
digital
why I
copy, correct?
inquired on.
Yes, we do have a digital copy, and we still have how many bound copies of the comp plan sitting in the manager's office that no
It's
one's,
up here, but
that-
yes, I
that no
do.
one has come in to take.
That's,
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing.
that's
Let
the
them play
reason
around.
for this.
For the shorter.
She, oh, I'm sorry. She also stated about putting some at the realtors' offices, so that was an added. So let's decide because I need to order 'em.
Charge the realtor.
$400 was a lot of money for 100.
Not when you compare with other places.
That's because, well, first of all, because it's just 100, and it wants to be on like the
Nicer stock paper.
the certain stock paper and the
Yeah.
shiny paper, and
Is the 400 for sure?
I don't know. I
Well,
didn't
they're.
get any.
What do you think, Chris?
So, Chris,
He's like, I don't.
You want to try and lower costs? Is that-
well, what planning did decide was they wanted the threefold, the trifold.
So it was a
What I
650
said
we thought.
probably wouldn't be good, they wanted, so.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys were originally talking about a 6-page stringer versus going with like an insert, because you guys didn't want to
Correct,
go with
no
the insert.
insert.
You want that loose sheet in there. Well, that's your more cost-effective way to go, is having that loose sheet. So when you're gonna print a long sheet, now you're going 8.5, 11, 3 times. Now you got a big sheet you're printing. That's where your cost is. You take a straight 11 by 17 sheet and you put an 8.5, 11 insert into it, your costs are gonna come way down. That was my suggestion, is go with the insert. That's gonna keep your costs down. I'll gladly make you a larger one, but it's
They
your-
said no. To the insert.
Does your printer have a stapler on it?
Yeah.
That was also put out there. I gave them 4 or 5 different options that Chris and I spoke of, and the one that they
So-
agreed upon was,
Yeah, I mean, that's what they want, but
Yeah.
we
Um,
have the purpose.
We have to stick with cost effective too.
Exactly.
It makes sense to me that the Economic Development Corporation would want to have that as, would want to have access to that executive summary. The businesses in Columbia would want to. What if we send them like a complimentary 5 copies, so to speak, and then if they want more, they can purchase it themselves?
Might be more if you send to all those in 5 copies, you might be more than that number.
No, what do you mean?
More than 100?
Yeah.
No, I mean to the CEDC, not every member of
Oh.
it. To MAC, not every member of it.
Or you're just talking the Merchants Association, not all the businesses.
No, yes.
Chris, could you sample me 5 3-folds?
I'll
And
hook you up.
And then
Thanks,
print out
Thanks.
some 8x10s and we can staple them?
I can make it 5 samples.
Just 5 samples.
I'll make you.
Question, Paula, did they agree to is this going to be like one sheet trifold, 8.5 by 11?
No.
It's gonna be like 3 8.5 or 3 8.5
It's
by
like
11.
3 8.5 by 11s, all together on one sheet, so
And then you
you're
just,
like 25 long now. so-
Most executive summaries that I've seen are 8.5 by 5.
Yeah, Leo, we're talking this right here,
compared
Three in a
to,
row.
compared to this.
No. Most of them I see
plus
Are like
on all
this.
6 sides.
Most executive summaries look like this.
8.5, 5.5.
Five.
Yes. And when you do that, you get 4.
That's a 4-pager. One single sheet is a 4-pager, correct. You put 2 sheets in, you now you have 8 pages.
They have 5 pages. So you either
Well, I don't
go,
mind 3 single-sided or 3 double-sided pages.
So you guys have 5 8.5 by 11 sheets. That's
Right.
why we got now have 6 because the backside's blank. So
Right.
as I said, you can put anything you want on that backside. You can advertise anything you want on that blank backside.
Would you like to
And then just do as an
advertise?
insert. Whatever you want to do.
They-
McGinness property.
Whatever you want on that backside. You got a blank backside to use, you know.
That's a wonderful idea.
I don't want to
So
get
I'm
into a
saying.
big, I don't want to get into a big debate on this, but it has to be the size that people can carry, that these businesses and all carry it around. This, so many pages, this big, they're not going to carry it around.
So honestly, I do like the idea of getting 5 pages. 3 pages stapled and the backside being advertisement.
There you go. And I can stitch, you know, we can just stitch out the upper left-hand corner.
Because I believe you have most of the logos we get money from anyway.
So I have them all.
That's right, you do.
again, I did put that out there for the 6th page, and they do not want to attach anything with the executive summary.
Yeah.
They've had 3 designs, like you said. Anything that big is gonna be in your briefcase, not where you want to.
That's not.
And I can help you with samples. I mean, I can get you samples and then that way you can have it in your hand and see what you're doing.
Are they willing to do
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Like what the options were.
Well,
That's ours.
yeah, so it would be, all of this would be together. And basically, it would be this, or instead of having it stapled, it would be these 3 things together and folded over.
Well, that's not stapled.
That is.
This is.
Oh.
We just need to sell ads on the back page.
Yeah, why not?
We just need at least 4 businesses, local
Yeah, $100.
businesses that want to give $100.
Right.
If it's $400 for 100 copies.
I don't understand why we need a whole blank page of just saying this.
I already did that.
That's why you make it smaller.
Is there a reason that you guys wanted it as a stringer, like all one page, or you're afraid?
That was
like
planning.
somebody
That was the
using it?
planning commission that wants it on 1 page.
I think it was,
Who's the planning commission?
they're not here, but I think it was for the easiness of it.
The planning
That's what I'm
commission.
saying.
I'll write down the street.
I think, does anyone want to vote on this one tonight?
So I think if Chris could bring us back a couple samples.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Did the planning commission already see those samples?
No, that's, Chris has to
No.
print them.
They didn't?
Right, you talk about options at the shop. It's like, it seemed like they wanted a stringer, so they were really adamant on what we call stringers, all together, that big long sheet. So they didn't want that insert in there, you know, you're 11, 17, folded in half, now you're 8.5, 11, and then 8.5, 11 insert. So that sheet's loose. It seemed like they didn't want that. I don't know if they thought they'd lose that sheet or, but that's the most economic way to go.
Right.
Because you know what I mean, it's a simple single
I mean-
folded insert.
I mean, the goal is to distribute information,
Mhm.
not to,
Well, the goal is to promote Columbia. And where we're going in the next 40 years, 20 years.
20 years.
By 2040.
We have books on this program.
But
This
it's
is just a,
easy. I mean, this is easy to grab and read. People who are interested in putting a business in Columbia, people who are interested in moving here. that they can see where we're going to be in the next 20 years.
It's going to get thrown on a shelf.
I think if you're going to.
You can't carry it along.
I think if you're
agree
going to
that
read it,
The comp plan will, but the executive summary won't.
It'll
I
get
think-
thrown on a shelf. It's too big to carry along.
I think
Not-
if you're going
not
to read
it's
it,
all one sheet,
you're going to
won't
read it.
be.
If you're not going to read it, you won't read it no matter what size it comes
No.
in. So
Right.
that's what I think. I think you do it the
I
cheapest
agree.
way possible.
Yep, exactly. Yes, Frank.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
So that's what it's all about. It's promoting Columbia.
It's the comp plan.
It's
yes.
the comp plan. It's
Okay.
given a quick synopsis of the comp plan.
Okay. And what's the price for the 100 copies?
It says here $400.
Okay. I just didn't see it on there. I just want to move this. Thank you.
Voting, not voting.
I don't mind voting to authorize staff to go ahead with it, but I want staff to make the best possible decision. I don't know that we necessarily have to go to threefold if the individual pieces is half the price.
We'll go down and talk to Chris. We'll figure something out.
So,
Not to exceed 400.
Yeah,
Yeah, we could vote
Certainly
to
not
not
to
exceed
exceed.
400.
that's a good call, Kelly.
well, we already know that the threefold's quoted 400.
Mhm.
So I'd say not to exceed, I don't know.
You don't want to go that way, I'm telling you. It's really not efficient.
Yeah.
Not with them.
Strange.
So, you know what, I'd rather just wait. I don't feel comfortable voting.
Yeah, I don't either.
Let's just see samples first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we can vote on it at the work session, right?
Well, we can vote on it. No, because the work session is Tuesday, and
Probably won't have.
I'm going to be putting the packet together
Tomorrow.
first thing tomorrow morning.
That'll
So,
be the 8th.
and we don't like to vote at the workshop anyway, so we can see it at the 8th. And,
Yeah, I don't think the turnaround time be any different.
right. All right. So we're not going to take action on that tonight. We want to see some samples. All right.
And actually, you could probably get more with less. If your goal is to hand them out everywhere.
All right. So next we have a special event request, for Grace Souter and Nathan Boyer to have their wedding ceremony on the lawn between Columbia Crossing Building and Susquehanna River from 3 to 6 p.m. on Sunday, May 4th. Questions, comments?
May the fourth be with them.
Yep, may the 4th be with you. I try to get my daughter to have her wedding down there. She won't.
Since they're doing it on the lawn, this will be a dry wedding.
Yes. Well, this is just the wedding ceremony.
Just the wedding.
Yeah, this is just the wedding ceremony.
Okay.
Are there any questions? Anyone have a problem voting on this one tonight?
Not at all.
No. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the special event request for Grace Souter and Nathan Boyer to have their wedding ceremony on the lawn between the Columbia Crossing Building, Susquehanna River from 3 to 6 p.m. on Sunday, May 4th?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilperson Kaufman, second by Councilperson Geezy, to approve the special event request for Grace Souter and Nathan Boyer to have their wedding ceremony on the lawn at the Columbia Crossing Building between the building and the river from 3 to 6 p.m. on Sunday, May 4th. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? And next, I have a request to consider authorizing staff to extend an offer of employment to Bonnie Link for the position of Market House Manager at a starting rate of $56,822 per year, contingent upon background check and drug screening. Questions, comments?
So Bonnie's currently acting as the interim manager. She's filled the void since May 12th or 4th, 5th, something like
March.
that.
March.
March 5th. You got me on that May 4th thing. She's done an exemplary job tackling what was handed to her. So you know, at a minimum, I want to say thank you, and I appreciate what she's done so far.
Any questions?
I do have a question though.
Mhm.
Was it discussed with Bonnie about the coffee shop?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. They've also requested that we back pay Bonnie
To the fifth.
to the 5th.
I agree with that.
I was gonna ask that. She absolutely did the job and a lot of it. I mean, she covered quite a bit during that time.
Yeah, I didn't know if I could put that in the thing, because I figured that was operational decision and not.
I think it's good to have
Okay.
the council vote on that. And
Okay.
Should we vote on that separately or as one?
I think you can vote on it.
We can do it all in one.
Okay.
Yes, Frank?
Got to meet Bonnie. Bonnie's a nice person, but and with all due respect to her, where's the job description? Where was the job description for the previous manager?
There was a job description when we published it initially when Chris was hired for that position.
Where's it at right? Where was it at for this position right now?
I'm sure it's.
In the book.
I think, yeah,
Yep.
there's an.
What was it in the packet?
No.
No, not in our packet,
No,
no.
because we're not putting it out for, we're not,
Nothing's changing about the job description.
and we're not trying to hire anybody.
That ain't the point. There was never a job description that we ever seen. I think this is a lot of how Chris got in trouble.
No, Chris had a job description. There is a
Yes.
job description.
It was
He
posted.
signed the job description.
I'll put in for it. I'll put in to find it then. Now,
I don't think, hold on a second, Frank. I don't think you have to put in for it. I think, yeah, Steve.
I can
will get it.
provide you.
Yeah, Steve can give it to you.
Don't go through the
Sure.
hassle.
I mean, I don't have it here. but
no,
I'll get-
okay,
get it
I'll
to
come
you.
in and pick it up.
Sure.
A very important question. Why was this position not advertised?
I'll answer it.
This is
Go
a
ahead.
borough
Go
employee,
ahead. Sure.
and hold on. Let's clarify, this is not a union position.
Right.
Why was this position not advertised? You do the hiring and you do the firing, and it's always advertised. You check out your people that you get. This wasn't done, and that wasn't right.
Okay, so when this was a newly created position and we hired Chris, we did the advertising for the job. We posted it for the job, what was in the description of the job description, and we interviewed. When this happened, March 5th or whatever, Bonnie agreed to interimly step in and take care of it. And at that time, that's all she was brought in for. But with that month going by now, Steve is saying he feels that Bonnie can handle the job.
That's not the point.
Eric, if I can, this is a management position. If this were a union position, it absolutely would have been advertised.
No, it wouldn't have.
Yes,
It wouldn't have
it
been
would have.
advertised because you would have went through the ranks and see if anybody
Absolutely.
wanted
It would have been
that. Then it
posted-
would have been
posted throughout,
advertised.
and then it would have
But
went.
this
At some
has
point,
to
it's
be
an open position.
advertised. You people are flirting with a lawsuit.
Does not have to be advertised.
Why does-
Absolutely do
Why
not.
does the other ones have to be advertised then?
Because it's union.
Why do the other positions have to be advertised and this doesn't?
No position has to be in the union, yes, but no non-union position ever has to be advertised. It's not required by anything. Be very clear about that, right? So if you want to hire from within as a business or as the borough in this situation, you can hire within. You don't have to advertise it to anyone. That is not a legal requirement.
Sorry, Evan, I think you're wrong again, but you proved me wrong the other time. I won't say you proved me wrong, but I kind of ate that. I thought it wasn't worth the amount of the money for the lawsuit just to get somebody's hand slapped. But I still feel that, and I can't back it up because I don't have, the only thing I know is if it's a union position and nobody takes it, then it's got to be advertised. So then why would you have to advertise it then? Why don't you give it one of your buddies then?
The collective bargaining agreement dictates that, right?
Good
Yeah.
point. Good point. Good point. So now you're going to go through with this, and Bonnie has a stand. Will Bonnie still be running the stand?
That's what I just asked Steve.
That's what we just asked.
Well, tell me. You know, I heard him say something, but I don't know what he said.
She will not.
She will not. She will not run her stand.
No.
Okay, I'm just trying to get this so when I walk in the market house, I know what to expect. I know
Still
Chris,
get your pretzels.
when somebody was out, somebody didn't come in that day, he run that stand, and I really didn't agree with that. You had no market committee, you had nobody to help set the rules.
So Frank, I think two things on that comment there. One, you're going to see enforcement. You must show up on Saturdays. So it's not going to be people just missing willy-nilly whenever they want. The second thing is Bonnie's job is to manage, not to run stands. She's well aware of that.
Okay, so what happens if you don't show up on Saturday? What's the consequence?
These can be terminated.
Okay, another question. Who does the stand holders pay their dues to?
You mean the rent? It gets paid to
Rent.
the borough.
Finance department.
So anybody over there collects it?
Not anybody.
The finance manager.
Finance manager collects it, okay. Yeah, okay, I got some questions on that again, but, all right, I still think you're wrong, but we'll go from there.
All right, does anyone have are there any other questions, comments, or anything? All right, does anyone have a problem voting on this one tonight?
No.
All right, do I have a motion to authorize staff to hire Bonnie Link for the position of market house manager at a starting rate of $1,822 per year, contingent upon background check and drug screening, and additionally, giving her back pay to March 5th.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilperson Kaufman, second by Councilperson Geezy, to authorize staff to extend an offer of employment to Bonnie Link for the position of market house manager at a starting rate of $56,822 per year, contingent upon background check and drug screening with back pay to March 5th. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Thank you, Bonnie.
This is the gentleman.
Frank, we're moving on.
Yes, I know, but I wanted to clarify this because I don't know if you know how you
No.
voted.
Frank,
We're
past it.
Yeah, well.
You can see it on the minutes.
This was on the cemetery up there. When they wanted to use that, there was a $50 fee. And
We've received the fee. We already said it. We received the fee.
you didn't exonerate that.
No,
the
they
chief-
already paid
The
it.
chief got the check
But
today.
he asked to have it exonerated.
Right, because he
Yes.
didn't know we
Oh, I
already
see.
got a check.
No, I see what he's saying.
No, I'll tell you what my point is. My point is, a developer comes in here and you give him what, $4,000? Oh, what's Todd say? Give him a break. And you went exonerate a $50 fee? Come on. What is it?
All right. Frank,
We never got to
we're
vote
moving
on
on,
it. 'Cause
Frank.
He said he had to check.
He had a check. We didn't even get to discuss it. All right, staff reports, comments, and announcements. Solicitor Gable.
Just real quick to kind of piggyback on what John B. Miller was talking about this evening. We had to make some modifications to the deeds for those lots after the final subdivision plan was recorded, but we've done that now. Those deeds are here at the borough to be signed, and they'll be recorded, which is what we need to be able to close on that BIOS loan. So that should be done at the very latest by the end of the week. And I'm working with the folks from DCED for some of the things that the borough has to do to close on that loan. So we're on process on that. So just wanted to update you.
Engineer Ronaldo.
Okay, I wanted to just give a quick update since we talked a little bit about the, oh, guys.
You have, no, I see you have all night. Take it.
I'd like to talk about the printing of the, no, I'm just kidding. So just so everybody is geared up and not surprised, April 22nd will be a big meeting for you. We already discussed the award of the 700 Franklin Street demo consideration, considering closing on the BIOS loan and also potentially authorizing phase one. I will also have bids for the 800 block of Chestnut Street for your consideration on April 22nd. And at that meeting, I will be asking authorization to advertise the 900 to 1,000 block Walnut Street CDBG project and the Maple Park Improvements project.
Wonderful.
It's been busy. Thank
All
you.
right, so note to
Indulge
staff,
me.
nothing else on that meeting because
Yeah,
we got a
it's
lot.
Derek's meeting.
That's going to be Derek's meeting. It's all
That's it.
Derek's show. All right, Secretary Treasurer. Okay. Boards, commissions, and committees, there's no upcoming meetings. In your packet, you have the approved minutes for the Planning Commission workshop from February and also the Planning Commission regular meeting from February. Borough Council comments, Councilperson Brigard. Councilperson Fisher.
Nothing for me.
Nothing.
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 Nothing. All right. I have nothing on at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, April 1st. Council will hold a workshop. If anyone has something you would like added on that, let me know before you leave so that I can get that on, so I can get it advertised. I can put it together for tomorrow morning.
Is there anything for the workshop right now?
Oh, yeah.
I believe there is. Yes.
Okay.
I have not. I did not look at it today.
Some legislation for you to review.
I was kind of, and we are also having a brief presentation by Tim Swartz on a drone for the police department.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes. So, like I said, announcement of next meeting at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, April 1st. Council will hold a workshop. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilperson Kaufman, second by Councilperson Giese to adjourn at 9:28 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Nay.
We're adjourned.
So Heather, you have on the workshop continue budget items, right?
I